Hi, my name is Matt Busey. I am the owner and developer and designer, sort of this building, the Tip Top building in White River Junction. It's a project I started in 2000, purchasing this building, which at the time was mostly vacant, and it's been transformed into a multi-use building with restaurant and commercial spaces and a lot of artists. Where we're standing right now used to be the loading dock for the building. The parking lot was actually covered by a big metal structure. In each one of these openings was a loading dock entrance for the bakery. They'd roll big trucks in here and load bread onto it. The building was originally a bakery, so we can go on inside and take a look around. This is the entrance to the building, the main entrance hall, and this was the area just before the loading dock, or this was the loading dock. One of the features I wanted to build into the building was large public spaces, so all the hallways are wide and tall, and we didn't cover up any of the structure. The building's actually was originally made of 8 different buildings. The loading dock out there, which we took down, was one of them. This was an addition put on, and that brick wall down there you see is the original central building of the Tip Top. So over the years they added on buildings and eventually ending up with 8 of them. We have Tip Top Pottery over here and the Tip Top Cafe over here. They're 2 retail businesses that are on the ground floor and are well located because they have access to the parking lot. And then further into the building we've got offices upstairs. It's mostly artist spaces. The silver brick wall down there was the first building that was built in 1910, and it was originally the Smith Baking Company. It eventually became the Vermont Baking Company. And then became the Ward Baking Company that made Tip Top bread. That's when it got the name Tip Top. Before that it wasn't called Tip Top. And Ward closed the bakery in the 70s. The building went into hibernation, with people trying out different things in here. It changed hands many times, and I eventually picked it up in 2000. This is the first hallway that we renovated in the building, and this was part of an addition to the building. So again, this is the original 1910 building, and we're standing in what was another loading dock. I think it was the original loading dock built in the late 30s. And even though they raised the floor down there, the old wood loading dock floor is still here. They brought the floor level up where the trucks would have come in to make this a level floor. The old fire doors, we kept them here. They're not allowed to be used and they're all bolted off so they can't roll, but these were the original fire doors in the bakery. And the way they worked was there was a string that ran over these pulleys down here. It had a weight on it that kept the door open. And it had a little fusible link on it which was made of lead, and when the building caught fire, if it caught fire it would melt that at a relatively low temperature and the door would slam closed. But the problem is these things weigh a ton, and they were illegal because they would trap people in spaces. They would slam shut so hard that you couldn't get them open again, and I guess people did in some cases get trapped, or they're heavy. They still slide up, but they don't slide down. This one is actually closed and covering up an opening. So, and this one over here is open permanently, and we put another door in there. A lot of the building was painted silver, and we just went with that and kept painting things silver. Maybe it was considered sanitary or something, but I think it looks great. You know, it reflects all the other colors that are going on in the building, reflects light from outside. Maybe they thought that's what it would do, is bounce light through the building. Like I said, I wanted to keep as much open and large public space as possible. So as we work through the building, we find these things like, I had no idea there was a skylight here, and it was all covered up when I bought the building. So we uncovered it and decided to turn this into a kind of a public exhibition space. So set things up on First Fridays, and there's musicians that set up here. This is the oldest building in the complex. This is 1880. This is the corner of it. It was originally a stable for the Smith Baking Company. And I think this was the only building of all of these that was Smith Baking Company. I don't know that Smith ever occupied this other building over here. Right around here would have been the end of the Smith Baking Company original building. And this used to be sort of outdoors here. They had coal boilers and they would pile coal, and they switched over to oil. When they did that, they added this extra part of the building back here, another 20 feet or so, which has a basement underneath it, and they have a massive boiler. The boiler's still down there. It's like a 4 million BTU per hour boiler. And so this was building number 3 technically. This is 1, that's 2, this is 3. And I guess I would call this 4. This was like, they just stuck these beams between the 2 buildings. This used to be outside, and added flooring up there to join the buildings together. This was one of the later buildings, and we built this accessibility ramp here and some stairs that go down, but basically the floor dropped way down here. This was built in the 30s or 40s, and it was a big open space, but we divided it into four different spaces. You can see the old framing up there. We didn't cover any of that stuff up. There must have been some kind of big machine in here again, because they built these penthouses wherever there was a machine, you know, something that went up and had to be higher. There's still some things like here's the old cork insulation. This was an insulated space at some point. This room in here, you can see the old cork. That's what they used for insulation. So it was probably some kind of refrigerator or something. There's still some old heating. That's the old heating system up there. They would just run steam through tons of pipes. It's a funny place for it too, because it's way up high, which is a horrible place for a heating system. But this is a chimney, so maybe it was to keep the heat from getting in here. Lots of mysteries. There's a giant cooler in there. We kept the cooler. And the original occupant of the space was a gallery space. It was called the cooler gallery. This is the upstairs part of that opening. Yeah, the lighter things downstairs. And it really lets a ton of light in, which is great. So I encourage artists to hang their work up. And so there's kind of an ongoing, forever changing gallery up here on the 2nd floor. Encourage people to come walk through and take a look at people's work. And that's the other, that wood wall there is the other end of the cooler. So this is that connector between the 2 original buildings. Right here, this wood floor. You can see this was the outside of the original building, and this is the 1880 building. There's an old window. They got filled in. They put the door here. And here's an old elevator shaft. The elevator's still in there. To make it go up or down, you had to reach outside the elevator, pull on a rope, and then pull your hand in really fast. This was another piece of machinery that was just in here, and automotive electrical units. It's cool. It's a cool device though. It's like very Art Deco-ish. Here's one of the old baking racks. There were a ton of these around the building. We used them for construction, and then we couldn't really do anything with them, so we ended up keeping one, and the rest of them got sent to the scrapyard. This was an old compressor that ran the air system in the building, and there's the sprinkler system. That's still functional. This is the one of the tanks. I think this was the sugar tank. Pretty sure. Look inside and see the old sugar is still in there. We didn't get it totally empty. So that's just like crystallized sugar. And then this is in here there's no light in here, but this is the lard tank. Massive. It's like 15,000 gallons of lard. And it's kind of gross in there. They had a lard distribution system that ran all over the building, and I had to take that apart. And on hot days, there would be lard dripping out of it. The other basement's this way. A little recording studio down here. This is the old boiler room, but this is the old boiler. And it now has an organ on it. But when I bought the building, it came down here and there was a switch on the wall. It said boiler. I flipped it on, this whole thing turned on. I was like, oh my God, it's a beast of a boiler. This was in that addition they put on at the very back. So this was that basement area they added the last 20 feet or so. There were 3 boilers down here. I think what happened is they shut that boiler down and they put this boiler in, which is a little smaller and more efficient. And then when this one died, they put in these other ones over here, and then it died, and I gave up on the boiler system. But all this old piping was functional when I bought the building. It's just a massive system. I mean, I think the steam used to run all of the equipment in addition to heating the building. One interesting thing about this building is that the middle section of the building was designed by a Paris-trained architect. He was a classically trained architect. I think he was born here, went to Paris and came back to White River Junction and designed buildings here. It's ended up being a really good project. I think it was a good project for me. It was also good for White River Junction. It was the first project that, first major renovation downtown here, and it seems to have signaled to people that White River Junction was going to be a new place to come to and change the sort of a story that was prevalent at the time about White River Junction, which was very negative. And I just came in and was like, yeah, it's great. A lot's happened since then in White River Junction, which is really gratifying to see. You can start the ball rolling and other people pick it up and go with it.